This is the Crucible, the JRTC Experience.
Scouts out. XA on. Sappers up.
Hey, click to my position over.
Countdown 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Mark. EV downrange. Sir, the initial assessment is...
This is If I Would Have Only Known, a candid conversation with leaders. In this series, we discuss Brigade Combat Team warfighting skills and lessons learned in a decisive action training environment for large-scale combat operations at JRTC.
Hi, I'm COL Matthew Hardman, the Commander of Operations Group at the Joint Readiness Training Center, and thanks for joining us for another episode of the Crucible. And today, we went away and we're here at the Maneuver Center of Excellence at Fort Moore, Georgia. And I'm fortunate to be joined by two amazing officers and human beings. Gentlemen, would you introduce yourselves?
Sure. My name is COL Anthony Gore, and a little bit of background about myself. I started enlisted in the Army in 1995 as an 11 Bravo from the 1st and 501st. The Geronimos.
Yeah.
The first.
Sworn enemy of 3 Geronimo up in Alaska. No, great unit in history.
And so I spent some time up there from 95 to 98 before going back to school and getting my commission through ROTC. And then spending time within 3-2 SBCT at the time as a platoon leader, scout platoon leader in XO.
What battalion?
2-3 infantry.
Not everybody gets to be a Tomahawk.
No, not everybody gets to be a Tomahawk. And then I was lucky enough to have the opportunity to come back and continue to serve as a company commander in 520 infantry.
Okay.
So I've been a patriot and a regular, and not a Tommy. Before then, moving out to schooling and everything else, doing field grade time in 3 Corps and then 3 CR. And then after that, doing battalion command out of 417 infantry that went through a transition or transformation or deactivation to a 237 armor. And then commanding an SFAB out of 2-5 SFAB out of JBLM. Did some schooling after that, and then now I'm currently just coming out of assignment within United States Forces Command Korea as a J5 Plans Division Chief before I take command later on this summer with 2nd Brigade, 10th Mountain, the Commandos.
Mighty Commandos climb to glory. All right, a lot to unpack there.
Yeah, well, good morning. Colonel Trevor Voelkel, currently the commander of 1st Brigade, 101st Bastogne. So from Texas originally, very proud Texan, so always like to make sure.
Where in Texas?
Reno, Texas. So if you've ever enjoyed.
It's a lot. Texas is a lot of states.
It is.
I don't know where that is.
No, between Houston and Austin.
Okay.
Right smack dab in the middle.
Not weird, but interesting.
Correct.
Okay.
The home of Bluebell ice cream. So I always.
That is
That's my hometown.
Yeah,
so,
you should have led with that.
Yeah. So, I grew up as we had a cattle operation, beef cattle. Went to Texas A&M, finance major there, because too many 0500 wake ups with dad, bottle feeding calves. I said, Dad, I'm not being an ag major, I'm going finance. Did that, met my wife there, 20 years, Sarah, and came here, and had been a light infantry officer, started off in the 25th Infantry Division, 127 Infantry Wolfhounds. Then went to Fort Hood and was in 1st ID, 3rd Brigade, Task Force Duke. We stood up a brigade as part of the surge, so a light infantry brigade there at Fort Hood, now Fort Cavazos. After that, got an opportunity to go back to my alma mater, Texas A&M, and did ROTC for a short stint. Went to Kuwait for ILE, so did a foreign ILE. Probably for all the junior officers out there, not a way to call your wife to let her know where you're moving next to go overseas and just pick up the phone and say, hey, hon, we're going to Kuwait. But had a good experience. We were assigned to the embassy there, did schooling and helped with shutting down operations in Iraq the first time, 2011. After that, opportunity to come to Fort Johnson and was in 410 and then 310.
Yeah.
I was in 2-2 Infantry as a
Ramrods.
company commander, and then 2-4 Infantry and 310.
Warrior.
And then I was Patriot 5 for a stint, and then had an opportunity to go to UCOM and was at UCOM for 3 years. And then where I got battalion command in 1st Brigade as 1327 Infantry in 1st Brigade. Went to War College, a couple years at Army Futures Command in Austin, which is an amazing experience, completely outside my wheelhouse, but learned tons about the Army modernization enterprise. And then now, Bastogne 6.
Okay. And how long have you been in command?
10 months, almost 11 months.
Okay. And then, you know, where has the Army taken Bastogne in the last 10 months?
Yeah, so I took command overseas as part of OEADR mission operation. Assured to reinforce in June in Romania. The brigade was in 9 different countries at part of the rotation, focused on partnering with our partners and allies in Eastern Europe. So that was from June, and then brigade closed back in on Fort Campbell in December. And we did a CTC rotation in JMRC, our last 30 days in theater, but then came back to Campbell in December, and we've been in our modernization window as part of rearm right now, fielding ITN and NGSW, and so we'll be doing that through the summer.
Okay. And have you had a chance to shoot the NGSW yet?
Did, I shot it last week.
Is it
impressive.
It's the new hotness?
It is the new hotness. The soldiers love it. It is heavy, but the lethality.
Yeah. So absolutely can't skip PT.
Yeah, you got to get stronger forearms, right?
Yeah.
So a little focused isometric exercise.
Work on the tactical yeet to build up strength.
But yeah, look, energy at target at distance, phenomenal.
Yeah.
Fire control system, really a game changer for the line infantryman capabilities in that optic. So thus far, initial fielding, initial qualification, soldiers are happy with it, impressed with it, and we'll continue to provide that feedback to the Army as we continue this fielding throughout the year.
Awesome. Okay. And so I got a couple important follow-up questions. So where'd you go to school? I didn't get that.
West Georgia.
Where's
It's a small
that?
school outside of Atlanta, about an hour and a half out. I played football there. So
Okay.
In my younger
It's
days,
weird. That's surprising. You don't look like you built.
my younger days, I was about a 300-pounder playing defensive tackle at that school, and then I've done that twice. I went to school initially, wasn't for me, enlisted, went back to school, got back into football shape. I was like, okay, I'm good.
That's pretty impressive.
And then went back down, lost that weight again before commissioning. So history major, philosophy minor.
What's your you're speaking my love language. What's your favorite period or in history? What you study?
So African diaspora, war wars and a few other things like that. So that's mostly what I focused on.
All right. That's a very interesting subject, and certainly in Caribbean history in particular. You kind of think about that. Very cool. Okay, and then so Alaska, the artist formerly known as Fort Richardson, now known as Joint Base Ellendorf-Richardson.
Yeah.
Tell me, you got to give me a little bit about that, because what years were you there? You said 95?
95 through 98, and so as a young airborne paratrooper in the 1st of the 501st, formative experience for me as a M60 gunner, AG, then also an RTO before finishing my enlistment. And a couple of those formative experiences were, one, a trip to the National Training Center with battalion commander at the time, Lieutenant Colonel Tom Cole and Sergeant Major Kelso of 75th Ranger Regiment.
Mike Kelso, a legend.
Right, and so one of those formative experiences was seeing how important it was to clearly understand, even at the lowest level of specialist corps, the importance of disseminating a plan, making sure everybody understands it, and then afterwards being able to execute it and operate freely to accomplish specific objectives. And so, like one of those points that I'm trying to tease out there. As an A4 with the S3 and the radio back in the day, I can't remember what it is.
So you were the 3s RTO?
Yes, sir. I knew that we were doing an air assault, and in that air assault, back in the day, you're kind of just a passenger as an enlisted guy. You kind of understand some things, but you're just going to get on the aircraft, you're going to get off the aircraft, you're going to move somewhere, you're going to do some stuff. One of those things was we were going to go on to the Matterhorn.
Yeah.
And from the Matterhorn, be able to sit up there with our radios and an Air Force guy and be able to call in different types of fires to support combined arms breach of a mechanized force. all that stuff didn't click with me back then. All I knew was that I was carrying this, rucksack with this radio to get into a position to be able to make
just
sure.
for the audience, the Matterhorn is a pretty significant piece of terrain, and if you had a radio on your back, and by the way, radios then probably
A little heavier.
Yeah.
a little heavier. A lot of life happening on the Matterhorn for Specialist Corps.
And so what was great was as you're doing that movement and you like, oh wow, there's LPOPs up here. Well, security and the importance of security, because some of these LPOPs on the enemy side, like they're in their sacks because they didn't expect us to be up here, and so it's a quick kill. And
It's always a good JRTC podcast when we're throwing shade on Black Horse, right?
Exactly. And again,
We love Alons. We love you, Black Horse.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But then once you get in position, you start to see the success of all that planning and execution. So we're sitting up there, and we're listening to the traffic about the combined arms breach and the mech force, and then getting a little jammed up every once in a while, and then we're able to call in fires, whether it is artillery fires or joint fires, and you can see the success start to happen. And so that was informative because it was really important at my level, seeing like, oh wow, this stuff really is much bigger than what I'm typically used to in an infantry squad or a platoon or so on and so forth. So that is one of the key takeaways from my time up in Alaska.
Well, the power, of and the imperative for everybody, is like, okay, how are you helping down to the absolute lowest level people understand? One of my favorite rotations out at National Training Center, I was a task force senior, kind of circulating around, and I just asked like junior soldiers, like, hey, what's happening out here? And I heard a E4 specialist give pretty much like 90% verbatim the brigade commander's intent visualization. I'm like, oh, this is gonna be like, we're getting ready to do some damage on the end. Like, if we understand at that level, like how all this is like weaved together, but that takes work, right? To communicate that down, and help people understand what's going on. Have you been back to Alaska since?
I have not. It's been a long time. But I get to experience cold again at Fort Drum coming up this winter, so it's going to be good.
Yeah, it just, this might surprise you. I'll prepare you, because you've never been to Drum before, right?
Only once on a TDY trip, and my son, he just got out. He just ETS'd. He was in 1st Brigade, so I've only been at Drum when the weather was nice.
Where was he at? Where was he at Warrior?
I want to say it was 132.
Okay, mighty chosen.
Yeah.
All right, it was awesome. I was at the Infantry Museum yesterday, in National Infantry Museum, which if you haven't been there, another shameless plug, amazing place. And had a British captain with me and taking him around and kind of showing him, and they had a pretty good display for Lieutenant Colonel Don Faith, who had been up at Chosen and awarded Medal of Honor, remains recovered a couple years ago. Well, that's okay. So you got Clonmacnoise legacy, but as you know, at Drum, despite the name of the 10th Mountain Division, there's not any mountains there, and there's actually more terrain, I think, at Fort Johnson, where 310 is, than at 210. But America's light infantry division, blue collar division. So I'm like super excited, and I know Mike Kershaw, former Commando 6, is going to be excited to get his arms around you and talk the brigade. Amazing history. 210. Here's an interesting fun fact about 2nd Brigade, 10th Mountain Division. Only Army unit that I know of that's been awarded a peace award. Was given a humanitarian peace award for their role in the Sons of Iraq in 2006 and 2007, and sort of reconciliation there. So pretty cool, amazing history in that unit. Obviously, amazing history in Bastogne. Was your predecessor, Kevin Sharp, gave me this nice Bastogne street sign
awesome.
that we've got in the JRTC headquarters. So
I'm assuming the yellow and black with the red outline.
Yeah, it's pretty
It's
awesome.
a famous photo. But
and it's got a place of prestige and prominence there. But yeah, it's awesome. And so we're all here. We didn't just come down here to go to the National Infantry Museum and do a podcast. We're all here for the Newer Center of Excellence fight course.
Yeah.
So if you guys don't mind, Trevor, if you'd start, maybe tell me a little bit about that course and what you've kind of hoped to get out of it.
Yeah, well, I think General Buzzard and co-commanders, I think, identified correctly that there may have been a gap in our education as colonels in truly how to fight BCTs.
Well, I mean, and some of this is what everybody in the Army is like going through. Like, for 20 years we did something very different than what we're asking the Army to do right now. It doesn't, clearly, like, talented people, smart people, but we've all got this gap of experience because we didn't live large-scale combat training for large-scale combat operations over the last 20 years.
Yeah, so I think that LISCO gap that they identified, and you throw a coin fight at us and we got this.
Yeah, I mean, like...
But with LISCO it's hard. And the scale and complexity, the speed at which that fight plays out, and the capabilities now, the technologies. So I think he aptly identified that there was a gap. And I think October last year was the first course, their prototype on bringing brigade commanders together, both current and incoming brigade commanders with senior mentors, so retired general officers and senior NCOs, bringing in the COGs from our CTCs to help us understand in time and space how to fight our diverse organizations, the armored, light, striker, BCTs. So this is the second run of that course, and I think they adapted and changed based off of feedback from the first course. So we're on day 4 of 5 of the course. Worked late last night, not too late, on an order that they provided us, practicing commander's intent, giving planning guidance to our staff. Talking offense, talking defense. Sometimes we're talking other aspects of command, but bottom line, the fight course is just a course and opportunity for us to get together as war fighters to focus on fighting our brigades, which is, as you know, you get to see it every month. It's challenging, and so it's been a great opportunity to reconnect, share ideas, lessons, GTPs, and hear from all the CTCs.
Yeah, I mean, the interesting kind of thing is, you come to this course like this, and I'm here, partly to help facilitate some stuff. But I mean, I'm walking out here with like a ton of notes, right? And it's this, it's this infinite game, and to truly understand our profession, isn't an end, is a journey. We're like super fortunate. We've had John Taylor from the National Training Center. We've had obviously John Buzzard, John Simmering, and then we've got 2 great mentors in this thing.
General Eisenhower.
Yeah, General Eisenhower. Recently coming back from the division rotation in the dirt. Amazing. It's the second time I've kind of gotten to hear his feedback from that, and what stuck with me from his is just like the necessity of like simplicity and focus on very fundamental things, because it adds up to success. And then we got John Quintus retired here, 10th General retired Quintus, and then the godfather of field artillery, Major General retired Longo, who's just unreal, like how listen to his stuff on fires.
So I think that's one of the special things about the course. As you mentioned, we all come here to learn and how to become, better leaders, right? So going into brigade command, I haven't done that before.
Right.
I've commanded battalions and everything else, but the stuff that comes with a brigade, as far as how a brigade fights and tries to synchronize intelligence, fire, sustainment, and other warfighting functions, I haven't experienced that.
Yeah.
And so being in a position to where I can talk to peers about how they have done it, or senior mentors about how they have done it, or a division commander about what he expects out of a brigade commander, helps me, start to look at how I'm going to go back and refine and clearly communicate how I want a formation to fight going forward in the future.
Yeah.
I think another thing that has been special about this week as well is, a lot of people have talked about how much change there is going in the Army. And so we're in transformation and contact and everything else. There's a lot of different problems out there.
Or opportunities.
Right. And so for me, that's what leadership is about.
Yeah.
Like, we solve problems. And so coming and identifying what these new challenges are and how we're going to go back and contribute to solving those problems and how we're going to establish that legacy of leadership to where we're going to take what we have learned, develop junior officers and subordinates so they can contribute to solving that problem and inform our future Army going forward. That has been, truly enlightening over the past week as well. So getting those lessons learned, looking at how we may approach problems going forward in the future, cross-talking with each other as peers, and getting that extra practice rep before I head into brigade command, or for commanders that are in command, getting additional practice rep to refine what they're going to do, has been really special over the past 4 days.
Yeah, it's a, just here at the table, we got somebody that, on the far side of brigade command, somebody that's in the midway of brigade command, somebody 45 days out from taking command. And part of this is, it's the coffee cup, you look at sort of how to fight a brigade, I think kind of anything, and you look at it from these like different perspectives. And that for me, my time at JRTC and NTC is there's things that, I had looked at a certain way, and then all of a sudden all it took was a leader to just kind of move me like this. And it's like, oh, I hadn't thought about it like that. And the fires discussion, I think, is just a fascinating one. I mean, how I view that problem set as a battalion commander was just really different than how I viewed it as a brigade commander. And then, now as the COG, getting to see people do it and listen to senior leaders and see it like a little bit differently. And then obviously, with John Longo here, it's like now a third dimension of really thinking about it, from a division perspective as well, which is, I think, part of really what we all got to be able to do is not only understand what we're doing at the brigade level, but really understand what the division, the corps, and the joint force is trying to do as we're in that fight, and relying on those capabilities, relying on those higher headquarters, to achieve effects for us. But like, we got to be a part of it, as well. This leading through change. Give me, what I'd ask you is go back in your Wayback Machine and give me, some perspective of where you've experienced this at other points in your career. Because it feels like a lot of change right now in the Army, and I think it is a lot of change. I mean, it's just but it's not the first time like our Army's like done this, and it's not the first time in our careers that we've sort of experienced this. So I'd be interested in sort of, y'all's perspective on some of those examples in your career.
Well, I think, as lieutenants, right, we went to war, right? And so you went from a peacetime Army after September 11th to an Army at war. And so, significant change in learning and adaptation throughout the entire period. So I think we, and every soldier in the Army over the last 20 years has experienced that adaptation, growth, and learning, and been a part of that development throughout our entire time. For me, the biggest one.
Yeah, hold on a second. I mean, I think one of the things with that is like, even the practice of, as you're describing, learning how to lead through change professionally, in a constructive way. If we unfortunately have to go to war again, we're all gonna get to do that again. We're all gonna get to lead, because it will be a change. It will be from, this state to the next state. So even that process, forget whatever the change is, like just learning how to lead through it as you're describing, it isn't of itself an important kind of lesson. Sorry.
No, yeah. But for me personally, seeing change was, we were sitting right here, a different building, a few years ago. And they came into class and they said, hey, we're graduating you guys early, and you're gonna go stand up a brigade. And so we stopped after company phase. I never did battalion phase.
Wow. It shows. I mean, in the conversations, we were talking about it before coming in here. No,
and so we were, a little bit flabbergasted, and but we're like, okay, where are we going? They said, all right, you're going to stand up a brigade at then Fort Hood, Texas. And we're like, okay. And so we all showed up, and I still remember to this day, walking into the company and we had a couple NCOs, and a couple were prior service Marines, so brand new to the Army, and 100% fill on E4.
A lot of hoorah. Like, hey guys, I ain't gonna work here. Yeah.
And 100% fill of E4 and below.
Wow.
So quite a few chapter cases that came out of that, unfortunately. But very quickly, that we were filled to 100% and got all of our equipment and trained for an Afghanistan deployment, RC South, within about 8 months. And so it's not transformation in contact as we're seeing now, but the Army was transforming, building those 4th Brigades, building additional combat power for the fight that we had. And so I've drawn a lot of lessons learned from that as I'm looking now at my BCT, losing my cavalry squadron that they're paring down right now, soldiers dispersing within our formation, within the division, and understanding the leader to lead ratio and making sure our personnel and how we're timing that and being very deliberate to make sure, we haven't PCS'd or moved all the NCOs and officers and we got 100% of our E4s and below. So different situation, but some hard lessons I learned early in my career that are quite applicable to today and how we're transforming to make sure that we're doing it appropriately and doing it correctly in honor of these organizations, shutting them down.
They have amazing history.
132 Cav at Fort Campbell famously was where Elvis Presley served. So we've got all the photos in their headquarters with Elvis Presley that were given back to the museums. But yeah, so the lineage and legacy of that organization of doing that properly, and then making sure that that soldiers are getting an opportunity to go where they want to go if they're PCSing, or staying as we can maintain their families, kids in school. And so we're being very deliberate to make sure that people first is applying to how we are deactivating these units.
Yeah, and I mean, I think, a couple things here. I mean, change is constant in our Army. We've done this a bunch of times, but what you those colors matter.
They do.
Right? There's a lot of people that have put blood, sweat, and tears into those colors over the years, and then the other is, especially I think for our generation, the Gold Star families that have a tie to that, and it's really on the rest of us. The colors may change, but it's on the rest of us to keep, loving our soldiers, loving their families, and remembering our Gold Star families and the sacrifices made, which is a humbling responsibility that we all, I think whether you're a PFC or you're a colonel, get to carry on behalf of the Army. Colonel Gore.
So very similar to what Trevor just said, coming out of IOBC and going to the Army's 1st Striker Brigade.
Which we don't even call it IOBC anymore.
But going to the 1st Striker Brigade and receiving the first sets of strikers.
What year did you get there?
2002.
Okay. Okay.
So there was the test, I believe, earlier 2002, 2001 timeframe with 520 and some others, and then the fleet came in and 2-3 had it first, and the brigade overall, we had to claw through. Okay, what do we do with these new vehicles and this platform, and how are we going to take this mobile arms room and take the principles of light infantry and apply it into employing this formation in combat, right? So untested, war just started off. We had some time to train up, and with that time we had the benefit of a couple of CTC rotations at NTC as well as JRTC before being employed. But what I take away from that was it was all new. And what mattered was the leadership that was involved to say, this is what's important, and communicate what was important very simply so that everyone could understand. And then be able to contribute to focusing on what's important to make the formation grow and then apply itself to getting better at echelon. And so, with that, there's a lot of mistakes that happen, right? And with those mistakes, there's a lot of learning that comes from that. And those lessons learned contribute to the growth of other formations, other leaders in the future. So personal experience, another NTC vignette. So going through NTC as a platoon leader, when you have a brand new vehicle that could do about 60 to 70 on a highway.
Very
you
quietly.
think that, hey, I could just drive across this open terrain as quickly as possible, and maybe I could get this in position, and maybe it'll do something against tanks and things like that, and maybe I shouldn't have to worry about the terrain and everything else. And then I got slapped in the face with what a clear a D file drill is. So understanding the importance of, hey, the enemy has a plan, and with this plan, he is trying to kill you as quickly as possible. He's going to use the terrain and his weapon systems at their effective ranges to try and make sure that you cannot accomplish what your mission is. And unfortunately, Lieutenant Gore at the time was like, hey, we're going to clear this defile. We're just going to just drive straight in between these two pieces of high ground.
Yeah, what could possibly go wrong?
We're going to set up support by fire, and then we're going to move into another position, and we're going to attack and solve this objective. And we got crushed.
See, Black Horse, he made it up.
Got crushed. And what we learned from that was like, oh, it is important to go back and do some terrain analysis. It is important to look at the effectiveness of your weapon systems as far as their max effective ranges and where they should be employed. And also the additional capabilities that you have within the formation. So whether it's vehicles or other things like that, how are you going to employ them? Where are you going to identify a dismount point? Where are you going to seize pieces of terrain and then be able to bounce back and forth and move? All those tactics that we get throughout our PME. So with that change that the Army provided us the opportunity to influence how striker formations would be employed in the future, there was some failure in there, but with that failure there was a lot of growth. And leaders had the chance to go back, understand how they failed, go back and retrain, get better, and then make the formation better, make junior leaders better to where eventually we deployed, and I deployed as a platoon leader in XO, and then as a scout platoon leader, and then came back and had the chance to command and deploy again during the surge time frame. There's a lot of other lessons learned at that time as well.
So a couple interesting kind of things. Part of this, you look at like Bloom's taxonomy of like learning, right? And the highest level is really synthesis to create, and it's really the ability to learn from a failure, learn from a different problem, and now apply it to a completely new and different problem. Right, and not that it's the same problem that you're solving, but to take an experience and lesson from one set and then apply it to a completely different situation. And that's the opportunity we get, I think, all the time in the Army. We sort of sometimes I think take it for granted. We get a lot of opportunity to grow. We get a lot of opportunity to solve problems. And then we get a lot of opportunity to try to apply, those kind of principles and the things that we learn to new problems. And one of the things that I've come away from the CTCs with is, it's at the end of the day when you boil it down. I'm trying to explain it to other people who have no affiliation with the military. It's really just complex problem solving under high stress, which I think sometimes when you're doing it isn't fun, but I always come out the other side of it. Grateful for the experience. We just got done doing a rotation with a special forces group. First time in the 95-year combined history of the CTCs we've ever brought like a special forces group. They did great. We learned a lot. There's a lot of things that really kind of challenged us, and it was a great rotation. But there was a ton that we learned out of that experience. From things that we didn't get right and things that we identified that we could do better. My transforming in contact is going to pick up earlier on your story. 1999, 3rd Brigade 2IB just came out of the National Training Center rotation in the Aruba. Heavy unit. We've got. John Hertling was my brigade commander. His son's in this course with us right now. Todd, a great officer and human being. And the day we came out of the box, we got told hey, we're going to be this new interim brigade combat team. We're gonna turn in our tanks and our Bradleys, and we're going to transform into this new organization. Didn't even have a name. All it was an interim brigade combat team. And go back, take over as a company XO. My first week as a company XO, turned in every single Bradley in the brigade with about 2 weeks heads up. Turned in all of our SINGARS radios, turned in a bunch of property, and then drew a bunch of new property, and to include sign-in for a company's worth of Canadian Lav 3s. And every company had a different platform as we were trying to figure out, what the future looked like. And what you were describing, leading through this, I mean, my battalion commander at the time was General Nick Nicholson, and what you described is exactly kind of what he did. We're going to explain it clearly, focus people on what the priority is, focus people on the stuff that matters most, and his ability to communicate that effectively, and frankly do it like with an insane cheerfulness.
Positive attitude.
A positive attitude, alacrity.
Yeah.
Turning in a company's worth of Bradleys can be an incredibly emotional event, and I just remember just being excited about it, excited about the opportunity, sort of this unknown, frankly to an experience to kind of realize some of the challenges that were in front of us. But it was absolutely a powerful experience and a ton of fun. At the time, 3rd Brigade 2ID was one of the only brigade combat teams in the Army. It was a separate brigade. 7th ID wasn't at then Fort Lewis. And so during this time period too, like that's what happened to the Army. We transformed not just the creation of striker brigades, but the creation of modular brigades across the Army, which, here we are 22 years later, sort of undoing some of the modularity for some good reasons, as we reorganize to prepare for potentially, a different fight and a different way of thinking. The other thing I think you brought up, and this has kind of been a theme, is the basics, right? Fundamentals. And I'd be interested, from this course, like what you've taken away, and Anthony, I'll come back to you, what you've taken away is like the basics at the brigade level that you think you got to focus on, or the basics that you think company commanders need to focus on.
So we'll start with the basics at the brigade level. What I think I've taken away is how much time I need to invest into developing the brigade staff to focus on the brigade fights. So one, can we use a common language called doctrine to use a planning methodology to clearly develop orders and communicate things to subordinates so that they can do what they need to do. And number two, with the brigade staff, where are we focused? Are we enabling the close fight? Are we fighting the deep fight? Are we managing transitions? Are we doing all three at the same time with different members of the staff? Those are the things that I think I need to focus on with that brigade staff. And then number three, how do I and the brigade staff leverage intelligence, fires, and sustainment to make sure that the massing of effects for battalion commanders and their formations happens at a decisive point to make sure that we achieve an operational or tactical objective. Those are the basics that I think that I'm focusing on. For company and battalion commanders, what I think that they're focusing on is, one, where are we? So I'm very concerned with where we are in our training glide path. I have an exceptional predecessor in Scott Wentz, who has just come out of CENTCOM, has been fighting a completely different fight that most people aren't aware of as far as the counter-UAS drone fight and all the things that they have done to inform the Army about maybe what we'll be doing in the future.
Have saved a ton of lives over there, based on their proficiency. But they're just back, so you're meeting them as they just come back.
Right, and so with that, there is a training glide path established with clear guidance about, okay, look, we're going to take some time to gain accountability with command supply discipline and other things like that, to focus on the formation and growing the formation. Then we're going to take some time to focus on individual level training the right way. Then we're going to take some time to focus on collective training, squad and platoon and everything else. And so company commanders understanding and looking into doctrine to understand how to use the 8-step training model, and other things, to develop quality training, and then to certify leaders at echelon. to make sure that they can do what they're asked to do. And they're empowered to do it, you know, at a time when, you know, they may not be able to call mom or dad on the radio and make a decision for them.
Yeah.
So those are the basic things that I'm looking at as far as what I'm focused on at the brigade, and then what I'm focused on for company commanders initially going into command. At least that's where I think I'm starting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Matt, and I'll answer that question, but as you were both talking about the transformation in contact, and it's just, it gives me a pride in the Army that we've continued to adapt and change, and we're not this static monolithic beast.
It's not that we get it right all the time.
No,
but
as Anthony was talking, and I can't believe I forgot this, was, you know, as Lieutenant Voelkel, 127 Infantry, we transformed that brigade to Striker. And I remember as the S4 and the project manager saying, hey, Lieutenant Voelkel, you're going to sign for your battalion Strikers. I was like, all of them? And I'm like, no, I think that's a commander job. That's commander business. But, and then as Anthony was talking and mentioning, you know, Scott Wentz and the challenges that they've had, you know, many of us transformed into SFABs before SFABs were a thing.
Right.
Deployed and changed. And so it's been almost every assignment and every unit is now that I've, you know, reflected on in the last few minutes of that we've had some significant organizational change, and that we've made it work. We've been successful. You know, everyone having a simple understanding from the commander's intent, communicating that, and everyone getting behind it and moving. So with that, it gave me a sense of pride of our.
You know, so two things with that is like one, like we don't get to pick what the operational environment looks like. Right? We just, you know, we get to adapt to that operational environment. And then I think the second, which just kind of highlights as you were both talking, is like, we're able to do this because, like, you know, our pacing item is people.
And we do it well.
We do it well. We do. I mean, we're self-critical, but we do it well.
We do it well.
You know, and it's, yeah, I mean, we've got specialists that grow up to be brigade commanders, you know. I know a couple of you, Rob Shaw. We do it well. We do a good job of identifying really talented people and developing them. We don't do it perfectly, but we do it really well. And you know, now I'm always. I mean, that's even this course. I mean, it's one of the best things. As just the people that we have is pretty powerful. You know, the character, I mean, all centered, you know, on the values that we all share, and just this kind of, that's, you know, relentless drive of people to solve complex problems in high stress is, you know, we live you know, we're well, you know, we're appropriately compensated, but I think the greatest compensation we get is really the people that we get to do this with. It's like super amazing.
No, it is, and so, and I won't, you know, say what Anthony said regarding the problem, but for me, just to simplify for all the company commanders, battalion commanders out there, is our job at Echelon is to give our subordinate elements a problem they can solve.
Yeah.
And we talk about correlation of forces, especially at this level, of just making sure that whatever enemy is you know, coming within your sector, within your AO, within you know, the boundaries that we've given you, is that have I at Echelon as a brigade commander, am I giving that battalion commander a fight that he is equipped, man, trained, and has an ability to influence to an appropriate level? The battalion commander, is he doing that for his company commanders? Is the company commander, you know, at the point of the spear, point of friction, doing that for his organization? But through us at the brigade level, it is the fires, intelligence, and sustainment is winning that fight. I truly don't have to worry too much about my infantry battalions. That's my comfort zone. And that's where I want to go to.
Yeah, it's not that they're better.
No,
it's that you got three of them, and you're very experienced with those three.
But I'm not experienced with, you know, from an enterprise perspective, intelligence, sustainment at this level, the complexity of it, and then fires at this level. And I think so. Just that we say COFMs and we talk about correlation of forces and trying to get that enemy to down to the right level. You know, defeating, attriting down to the right level, but it's just giving that subordinate commanders a problem they can solve. And if I do that, then I've done my job.
Well, I mean, and that's like part of the point of why we've changed some of the things that we've changed, you know, with the division is the principle of tactical formation is giving brigades a problem that they can solve, right? Giving a battalion a problem they can solve. not because we don't think battalion commanders are smart or brigade commanders are smart, but you know, the demands of large-scale combat operation, we got to simplify the problem for folks. And then, the expectation, and I think, is that the division's going to do the thing that it does to set the conditions for a brigade combat team, and, we're going to do that at the brigade level for battalions. But I think it's interesting, it kind of comes back to, even in transformation and combat, right? There's things that, at the company level in this fight, transforming in contact, that you got to solve at the company level. Property accountability, taking care of human beings, right? Making sure that we got the leader-led ratio right in the formation. The leader development, company commanders and first sergeants, like developing squad leaders. The way Joint Buzzard in the Army is developing us, taking the time to do the leader development. We need company commanders and first sergeants doing that with staff sergeants. That's their fight. In the battalion, it's a different problem. It's a different fight, and I think we got to let the Army solve the problems that are the Army's to solve. We've got to solve the problems at the brigade level that are ours to solve, because we got enough. We don't need it. We don't need to take Joe George's problems. So he'll tell us when he needs our help. We got to solve the problems that we've been given. Kind of any thoughts on that?
I think that's absolutely correct. So we keep talking about how much change we've experienced in our careers, and now our struck is, on the tip of everyone's tongue as far as like, oh man, what's going to happen? It's going to happen. It's been said, this is what's going to happen. These are the changes that are going to happen. So how do I focus on whether it's...
I feel the bar coming into place, and I've got a ticket for Space Mountain in my pocket. We're going to take a ride.
It's going to be good. And so, if I'm looking at 7.0 and looking at shoot, move, communicate, survive, or you have your big 5 or big 7 or whatever it is, and then you're looking at how you're developing your training to focus on how am I getting better as a war fighter? How is this organization getting better at war fighting? Right? Stay focused on that. The other stuff that is outside of your control as far as applying different assets, trust the leadership that is in place at an echelon above to do that for you. And so I think that's what's been really informative about this past week, and also looking at the changes and everything else. Those changes are going to happen. If you do this for a while, you're going to experience a lot more in the future as well. And what's going to be important is how you look at that problem, how you gather your information, how you come up with how you're going to describe that problem to your subordinates and everyone else, and then how you're going to focus on solving problems at each level. And that's the big takeaway for me with all this.
And we get to, because we're positive-minded people, you're going to get the opportunity to kind of do some of this stuff over and over again. One of the things, and I can think back to my time in 1st to the 23rd and becoming an interim brigade combat team. I can think to, as you described, 2013, taking a brigade and becoming an SFAT and going forward to Ghazni, and doing kind of the advisory mission before we had SFAPs. We're going to be okay, because we got really good people. We're going to all work through the stages of grief with some part of these things, but the sooner we get to acceptance and move out, the better off, ultimately we're going to be. But we got great non-commissioned officers. We got great junior officers. I think how you're describing it is we just got to get them oriented on the right thing that's within their scope and experience to solve.
And invest the time to provide the opportunity to learn exactly what they need to learn, and then take that knowledge and then apply it to solving those problems. And so, since we're talking about SFAPs, was provided the opportunity to help stand up 5th SFAP as a battalion commander. And one of the key takeaways I got out of that, as far as coming from one battalion and going to a brand new one where it may have been the 10th person, actually in the formation and watching it grow to its, however many hundreds that were in SFAP. We took the time, based off of the guidance and the leadership provided by now General Taylor, to invest in our people, to provide the time and opportunity for them to get the PME and the other education and training at different schools, and come back and like develop training at home station to say, okay, what did you learn? How does that apply to what your job is going forward? And so like I have seen where we have taken our non-commissioned officers and sent them to a variety of different schools, and they understand MDMP and TOPs, and they can then move forward as an organization. One of the, the shining points of my experience with that organization is employing a battalion of 20 different teams across 11 different nations to train and partner with other forces about tactics, right? And so the big takeaway was, who was leading that? The non-commissioned officers on those teams were leading that training and that development as far as, their interactions with other forces. And it was impactful.
But the key to that is exactly kind of what you described, is like actually understanding what the experience and the knowledge level is. This isn't like, are they talented, are they smart? Do they know how to do this? Have we given them the right training? Have we given them the right experiences? And if we haven't, it's not their fault. We've got to slow down and do the leader certification, the training and leader certification. And that's come out as we've talked this over and over again. Is we all have gaps from large scale combat, because for 20 years we were focused on going to a specific place, and not that counterinsurgency was easy, it wasn't. But now we're in a spot where we're taking colonels and we're slowing down and we're making sure we give them the right doctrinal foundation. We're making sure that we're getting the right experiences to then prepare us to go do the thing, not just, hey, good luck, go figure it out. And I think that's like one of those things that we really got to take on, and particularly at the company level and at the battalion level. We can't assume that a Sergeant First Class with 12 years knows how to do some of this stuff. Again, not because they're dumb, but have we given them that experience? Have we given them that development? And we get to do that. All right, we're gonna close out. Trevor, you got any closing thoughts?
Yeah, as Anthony was talking regarding the change aspects and growing the SFAP is, for our junior leaders out there, at echelon is control what you can control, right? The stoicism philosophy is just of looking at what responsibility the Army's giving you. And at echelon, whether you're a team leader with a couple soldiers, whether you're a squad leader, platoon sergeant, that is an immense responsibility at echelon. That those soldiers are your responsibility, right? And
3 other human beings at the team level.
That they're yours. So control what you can control. And it's not to say, we continually push for innovative ideas, approaches, for everyone at echelon to look at the organization greater than themselves, to see how we can improve it and make it better. But I think some of the stress is self-induced at all of us at echelon, that we're worrying about things outside of our control too much. I can't worry about the Cav Squadron it's happening, and I'm going to control what I can control within that context. And now learn how to fight the BCT if I get called to war after August 31st. And how am I going to fight it without a reconnaissance and security squadron? And we will grow, will adapt, will change, and will be successful because of those junior NCOs, because of those junior officers that they have built in our generating force and TRADOC, and the schoolhouse that we're sitting in today prepares leaders to lead the day after graduation. They are prepared to get into that formation, with character, competence, commitment, learn their soldiers, love their soldiers, and we'll be able to move out as one team. And it's just, this conversation again has been really insightful and helpful for me, and just, again, rejuvenates me, gives me pride in our organization, because we're going to get through this. We're going to be better on the outcome of this. It's going to be challenging, but we're all going to get through this together, and those ideas and how we fight are going to continue to grow, develop, change, and adapt, because we are an adaptive, learning, and agile organization. Again, stepping back, big Army, it may look like that aircraft carrier that is barely turning as it goes through. But it really is at our level. We're adapting and changing every single day, and it gives me a great sense of pride to be a part of that. And leading and serving with those soldiers and leaders that are doing it.
You know, one of the things yesterday when we were getting the doctrinal, update pitch, is that reminder of, the other part of leader development is like self-development. And so it was listening to some of the changes, like, I need to go back and I need to reread some of this stuff. Which I think that's all of us. I mean, you don't get to read this stuff once and move on, because in part it changes. And I think this, especially now, there's really got to be this emphasis clearly on what we're doing in the institutional Army from a development standpoint. Clearly,
yes.
What we've all talked about, operational leader development. But I think the other part is the self-development. You're far better off experiencing a CTC. You're going to get more out of it if you've actually read the doctrine.
I joke with my company commander. I tell them, hey, if I come down to your cough, I want to catch you, taking a nap or reading a book. Right. Focus on that holistic health and fitness. We're busy. We're up early. We're staying late.
And preferably that book is, got FM in front of it. Right.
I think to close with, one of the big takeaways that I would like to reemphasize, because I understand that the audience is a variety of different officers and non-commissioned officers at different levels. We embrace this change, and we do well at it, and we'll continue to do well at it because of the people that come into our formations. And so if we're focused on warfighting, we're also focused on building those cohesive teams, and that requires trust. And so with understanding how we need to develop our junior leaders and understanding the responsibility of our junior leaders to do their own self-development, being able to have the trust to communicate back and forth between leaders, to sharpen that sword a little bit more, right? So understanding, you may not know it all. Reach up, laterally down, ask questions, have the discussion, have a good dialogue about, what is it that we're trying to achieve here? And if I don't know, I need to clarify that bad boy. Yeah. And if I'm not sure how to do it, ask for some help and some assistance.
This is, I think, hugely important, like what you're bringing up. I'm going to sit down with Lieutenant General Retired Quintus today, because I got some stuff I need to talk to him about that I don't know. Right? The non-commissioned officers in particular, the junior officers. That raise their hand and say, okay, I hear you talking about this. I've never been exposed to this. I don't know. I think that the courage that takes, the professionalism that takes to say that, because in this profession, there is no way that you can know it all. It's absolutely impossible. I just finished my 34th CTC rotation as an OCT, and I'm learning something every time. And so, the humility to do that is really is a demonstration of strength and courage, not of weakness. And we need more of that. We need more people to say, okay, I've heard of that, but I don't know how to do that. And then it's imperative on all of us to teach them. Because I'm, brigade commanders here this week and future brigade commanders, I mean, they're asking a ton of questions because they don't know. And that's not a bad thing, it's a good thing. They're not faking it, and I think that's hugely important going forward. I'll let you.
And so to close out there, it's about leadership and teamwork.
Yeah.
Right. So
it's what's going to make the dream work.
I'm a good setup.
It always takes a turtle, a hamster, and a duck. It's the Wonder Pets.
So I mean, those things are what's important. Right. It doesn't matter where you are in your career. Leadership and teamwork, and that communication between the two. Right. That's the takeaway that I have out of this. And so going back and thinking about, how are we developing leaders and how are we developing teams? That's what I'll be focused on coming out.
Yeah, that's what's going to give us the flexibility and resiliency when it all gets hard. Yeah, for sure. Hey, gentlemen, I am incredibly grateful for the time. I've heard of both of you before. I don't think we've ever met, and that's one of the great things about coming together in professional development is getting to meet other great people. And it's been a ton of fun. I've learned a lot from the two of you as well as kind of everybody else in this course. wish all of you the best, wish Bastogne the best, wish the Commandos here the best. Do me a favor, give Scott Wentz a big hug, an awesome American and 10th Mountain Soldier, and honored to get to serve with you and be in this great army with you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on The Crucible, the JRTC Experience.
The Joint Readiness Training Center is the premier Crucible training experience. We prepare units to fight and win in the most complex environments against world-class opposing forces. We are America's leadership laboratory. Again, we'd like to thank our guests for participating. This podcast was created and produced by Mr. John Mabes. Executive producer is Lieutenant Colonel Drew Zabriskie. It was recorded by Captain Jermaine Branch and edited by Mr. Travis Boyle. Series intros were built by Chief Thomas Rich, and vocals were done by Mr. Robert Chopper. Special thanks to Mr. Jeff England and the Fort Johnson Public Affairs Office. Be sure to like and follow us on social media to keep up with the latest warfighting TTPs learned through the crucible that is the Joint Readiness Training Center. Follow us by going to https://linktr.ee/JRTC. We'd like to thank our partners at the Center for Army Lessons Learned of the Combined Arms Center, especially the JRTC COL Observations Detachment. Be sure to follow them on social media as well. Follow them at https://www.army.mil/CALL. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and review us wherever you listen or watch your podcasts, and be sure to stay tuned for more in the near future. The Crucible, the JRTC Experience, is a product of the Joint Readiness Training Center.